Okay, good afternoon. This is the Joint Committees on Education and Health and Homelessness. Today's date is the 12th of March. We are in conference room 309, and it's 2 o'clock p.m. We have one bill on the agenda today. First up is SB 2476, School-Based Oral Health and Department of Education. First up, we have is DOE offering testimony and support. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Hawaii Department of Health, also in support in person. Thank you, sir. Next, we have University of Hawaii in support.
Good afternoon, Chairs Woodson and Belatti, Vice Chairs Lachika and Takaneuchi. My name is Clementina Seryeulep, Dean of the UH Manoa School of Nursing. And thank you for hearing this bill. And we support this measure and testify in support. So just to provide a little bit of more comments. So currently, the issue is that dental hygienists are trained to identify when a sealant could be appropriate and to perform sealants. However, children must be a patient of record and have a treatment plan with a dentist to receive a dental sealant from the dental hygienist. This creates additional administrative burdens and hinders efficiency in the school-based oral health program. So the aim of this legislation is to allow a dental hygienist to apply dental sealants in a school-based oral health program without requiring a treatment plan from a dentist without being a patient of record of a dentist. So this is effective, cost-free solution to supporting needed school-based health program. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Sure.
Next, we have the Disabilities and Communication Access Board offering testimony and support. We have Board of Dentistry in person in support.
The board stands on its written testimony and support.
Thank you so much. HCAN speaks in support. Hi.
Aloha mai ka co-chairs, vice chairs. My name is Mai Hall from HCAN Speaks. And I'm going to add a little bit more to my testimony to inform you that a little over 10% of Hawaii keiki are currently on Medicaid, and 10% of those, of the children who have Medicaid, only 10% of those children have sealants on their molar teeth, which indicates that even with insurance, that there are still barriers to access. Parents who work 2 jobs to put food on the table, to afford our high rent and cost of living, may not have the luxury to go to their child's school, pick them up, take them to a clinic down the road, attend their dental health exam, and then return back to work. Parents may not have that paid time off to attend these appointments during the school day, or some parents even have to catch the bus up to 45 minutes away in some rural areas across the state to be able to take their child to the dentist. Therefore, having a school-based oral health program to meet children where they are at in schools would decrease these barriers to provide access for children across the state. These barriers exist currently. Oral health and physical health are no longer 2 distinct categories. The impact of oral health can be felt through a person's lifetime, and it is time to allow the expansion to promote programs for children who are healthier and happier and have something to smile about. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Hawaii Oral Health Coalition offering testimony and support via Zoom.
Aloha, chairs and vice chairs and members of the committee. My name is Patrick Donnelly, representing the Hawaii Oral Health Coalition. We are in strong support of this measure, and I just want to thank you all for making the time for this agenda and hearing this issue. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you folks might have. Malo.
Thank you. Next, we have HMSA in support, Aloha Care in support, Save Medicaid Hawaii in support, Hawaii Dental Service in support, Hawaii Dental Association in support, Hawaii Island. Oh, please come up. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Chair Bellotti, and members of the committees. My name is Melissa Pavlicek. I'm here for the Hawaii Dental Association. I believe we submitted our testimony as written, but I just wanted to underscore that we've come together through the Hawaii Oral Health Coalition, which has been a really wonderful place to iron out any policy differences and come to you with a united front, and we support this measure.
Thank you. I see a lot of uniformity in the testimony, so thank you for that. Hard work. Next, we have Hawaii Island Community Health Center in support. Hawaii Dental Hygienists Association in support. And we have about a half dozen plus testifiers all offering testimony in support. Anyone else? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
I just want to thank all the advocates for working on this bill. It's rare to have a policy agreement at this stage, and it's very good to see it. Thank you.
Quick recess. Thank you. Reconvening for decision-making on one bill. Members voting on SB 2476, Department of Education and School-Based Health Care. Members, I would like to pass this with the HT1, just defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Okay, members, voting on Senate Bill 2476, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella?
Aye.
Representative Martin?
Aye.
Representative Martinez? Aye. Representative Matayoshi is excused. Representative Mizuno?
Aye.
Representative Peruso?
Aye.
Representative Quinlan is excused. Representative Todd is also excused. Representative Garcia? Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you.
Same recommendation for health. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Health Committee voting on SB 2476. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Amato? Aye. Representative Iligan is excused. Representative Kobayashi? Aye. Representative Martin?
Aye.
Representative Nishimoto is excused. Representative Garcia? Aye. Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. Convening the Joint Committee on Education and Labor and Government Operations. Today's date is the 14th. We are in conference room 309, and it's about 2:10 p.m. We have one bill on the agenda, SB 2070 ST1. This is with regards to DOE and a CTE procurement program. First up, we have is the Department of Education in support, in person, Superintendent.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, Chair Matayoshi, and Vice Chair Garrett, members of the committee, Keith Hayashi, Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the department. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Hawaii State Energy Office offering testimony and support in person.
Good afternoon, Chairs, Vice Chairs. Cameron Black on behalf of the Hawaii State Energy Office. We stand on a written testimony in support.
Thank you.
Thank you. And members of the committees as well. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Next, we have SPL offering comments in person.
Good afternoon, Chairs, Vice Chairs, members of the committee, Bonnie Kahakui for the State Procurement Office. We offer comments on revisions to the language in both first section and section, especially regarding the caps on the small purchase procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have DBED offering testimony and support in person.
Aloha, Chairs Woodson and Matayoshi, and Vice Chairs LaChica and Garrett, as well as all committee members. I'm Rick Manine. On behalf of DBED, we stand in support of our written testimony on SB 2070 SD1. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Waianae High School principal offering testimony and support, not present. We have Roosevelt High School also in support. Waipahu High School principal also in support. And that's all I have. Anyone else? SB 2070 ST1. Okay, members, questions? Chair Matayoshi.
For SPO. I know we've been talking for a little while about the electronic notice system that you're trying to get everyone on.
Yes.
In your recommended changes, one of them was to have awards over $2,500 posted on a publicly available electronic system. Do you currently have that system up and running?
Yes, we do. We have the current version. It's called the Hawaii Awards and Notices Database System. That is current. We are working on a new Aloha eBuys e-procurement system, but that's probably not for about a year down the road. But HANDS is available to everyone now.
Okay. When you get the new procurement system, or when you get that new system up and running, is everyone switching over? Is that
Not
the intent?
initially. Initially, it'll be executive branch departments only, and then we'll offer it to the other jurisdictions.
Sorry, did you say secular branch?
Executive
Oh,
branch.
executive branch, okay. Projected timeline on that?
The executive branch is probably not even going to start till 2025, so it may not be for another year and a half, 2 years. So, we're recommending that they use HANDS right now, and it's an easy, well, of course, we think it's an easy process to implement.
So 2025 for executive branch, another year and a half out, so maybe 2027?
Six, seven, yeah.
Is when everyone will be on board?
We hope, we invite all the jurisdictions to participate. We can't force them to participate. We'll open it up to them.
Okay, so if we set this awards over $2,500 posted on a publicly accessible electronic system starting July 1st, 2028, would that make sure that, is that enough time for the system to get up and running for everyone else?
Well, that will depend if the DOE and the other jurisdictions even choose to participate. It wasn't intended that they are forced to do it, but we're inviting them to participate. Because I know that they have their own.
Make them through this, though, right? If we pass it the way you wanted it to be passed, they'd either have to make their own or go on your system, right?
Well, I don't know if they have the capability to do it in HEPS now, which they currently use, and their procurement office in Waipahu already uses Hypo on Hands. So if they already have a system, they can certainly post it on their own.
I don't think they do, from talking to them. But no, thank you for sharing your timeline. Is
Okay.
there any, do you anticipate any delays or any, because I think you were going for another system first, right? And did that get shelved?
No, this is the same system,
This is the same
but
one, okay.
what's happening, it's in phases. So the first phase is which we're working on now, doing all the configuration, is the e-marketplace. After the e-marketplace, then becomes the e-procurement, the actual solicitation piece of the system. That's why
Gotcha.
it's taking will take a little longer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, recess. Okay, good afternoon. Convening for the Committee on Education. Today's date is the 12th. We are in 309, and it is about 2:27 p.m. Quick recess. Recess. Okay, good afternoon. Today's date is the 12th of March. Convening for our Committee on Education is 2:30 p.m. and we are in conference room 309. Several bills on the agenda. First up we have is SB 3328 SD1. This is with regards to SFA and the Department of Education's Office of Facilities and Operations. First up on our testifiers list we have is the Board of Education offering testimony in support in person. They are here. I don't see any members here. Next, we have DLE in person in support.
Well, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Lichika, members of the committee, Keith Hayashi, Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. The department is committed to undertaking a comprehensive review of our facilities operations to make sure we serve our schools as efficiently and cost-effectively as possible. The internal review began in 2023, and our overall aim is to index and manage land, facilities, and funding resources available for public education, and create an integrated and efficient process for putting those resources to use. We are working closely with the Board of Education and our industry advisors to accomplish this with a sense of urgency. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next, we have AG's office offering testimony in opposition in person.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Lichika, members, and Horiuchi from the Department of the Attorney General. Our opposition is specifically to proposed section 302A-B, paragraph 6, which will allow the Office of Facilities and Real Estate Development to appoint or retain private counsel. We've explained in our testimony why we believe our government clients are best served by Deputy Attorneys General. If there is a situation where certain specific experience is needed, there's already a process to appoint special Deputy Attorneys Generals to fulfill that need. So for these reasons, that provision in the bill is not necessary, and we request that it be deleted. I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. See, Chairman Haruki just walked in, but while he gets settled, we also have we have the Department of Budget and Finance offering testimony, offering comments, HGEA offering comments, one individual in support and the other in opposition. We have now Chairman Haruki offering testimony in support on HB 3328 SD1.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Lichika, members of the committee. I'm Warren Haruki, Chair of the Board of Education. I'm here to strongly support this measure and would be available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all we have on our list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony for SB 2232, SB 3328 SD1? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Please go ahead.
So the superintendent. So when I do a quick scan across the country, and I might be missing something, this does not seem to be regular practice, creating a real estate division within a public Department of Education. So can you identify any state Department of Educations that have such institutionalization of that focus?
Thank you for the question. No, I can't identify any particular State Department. We would, if that being the case, Representative Russo, we would be the first.
May I ask one follow-up question?
Go ahead.
So I am concerned about distraction from the central mission of your department, because I do think that real estate development, for me, just doesn't seem to fall within your purview. I understand your desire, or the desire of some members of the board, to optimize the value of state lands. We've been having that conversation in this building for a long time. And I do appreciate the move away from SFA. I think that's important. But I'm wondering if there is any critical conversation at the board level about the implications of really focusing on real estate development. And if so, I mean, maybe the board chair can speak to those conversations. He just,
If I may, and then Board Chair, thank you very much for that question and the opportunity to provide clarification. I think when we look at our core mission in supporting students and their education, there are many factors that come into play into that. First and foremost is the ability to ensure that we have teachers and qualified teachers. And this strategy and the strategy to optimize our land portfolio and know what we have and be able to build on that is also an opportunity to invest in, for example, teacher housing, and to provide opportunities as a recruitment and retention tool so that we can continue to recruit and retain the best teachers here in Hawaii. As everyone knows that it is, the housing market is a concern, and should we be able to leverage our real estate assets within the department, one of the things we're looking at is to be able to provide teacher housing, again, as recruitment and retention. And that then would support our core mission in ensuring that our students have qualified teachers in the classroom.
so because we're not doing enough to publicly fund recruitment and retention measures, then the department is being forced to kind of maximize the value of the lands on which the schools sit.
I think that we are doing quite a bit in terms of the support that we get from the legislature, as well as our Office of Talent Management. We have incorporated many strategies to recruit teachers. Most recently, last night, we were at an event for the governor of Ilocos Norte, and we do have a number of teachers from the Philippines that possess advanced degrees. I believe over 100 so far are in our schools. The principals that I talk to are asking for more. These are individuals that have come from the Philippines that are here for, I believe, 5 years. They are highly engaging with our students. Last night I was told that many of them are asking to go to Lanai, which is wonderful, and that's where we need teachers. High credential teachers. My understanding is also that we have up to perhaps another 100 more coming in next year. And so we do have many strategies that we're incorporating within the department. This effort in terms of to leverage our land assets is yet just one of many strategies that we're incorporating in the department.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Go ahead.
Superintendent? Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder, getting rid of SFA and putting those functions back in the DOE, I wonder how that will change things on the ground, if it changes your perspective on projects. So for example, the project we've discussed many times in my district of changing a very small school with 2 schools immediately adjacent to it into teacher housing that has never been of interest to the DOE. Would this change that?
I believe it would. I believe that it would. And Representative, thank you for the question. We have actually looked into that and looking at ways that we can leverage our current facilities in perhaps other ways that we may be able to manage things differently. I think through this bill would allow the department to continue to leverage the processes that we have, as well as establish new processes to help to perhaps move more quickly in that direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I follow up with one more question?
Go ahead, please.
Sorry, one more question. Just for then your other, CIP-funded projects, would this change? Some projects have lapsed in my district, and there's another one that the design is now 4 years funded, and it could lapse. Would this change the ability to see those projects through?
I think in the department, again, looking at those projects and those lapse funds, we are in the process of establishing new processes that would help us better optimize what we're currently doing. I think there are, our facilities development folks have been working extremely hard. They really have, and a credit to them. I think, though, what we need to do in the department is to leverage a new set of processes that the department can come up with, that we can identify department-wide priorities that would, from a statewide perspective, that is something I think that we may have moved away from, that we definitely need to move back to, and through that process, continue to work very closely with the legislature to ensure that we're able to prioritize in a different manner that would be able to meet the issues related to health and safety and CIP projects, repair, maintenance, and so forth in a more efficient manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicely done. Go ahead, Rep. Martinez.
Hi, Superintendent. You mentioned about the teachers from the Philippines.
Yes.
And had a conversation with them last night at the governor's event last night. And most of them had this issue about how can their working visa can be converted to H1. I said we have to ask the DOE about it.
Representative, thank you for that question. I'm going to restrict questions specifically to the content of the bill. That's a different topic.
Okay, thank you. But I know you mentioned about the teachers this way, so I asked this question. But I have another, I don't know if my next question is also pertinent to the bill. It's about the land acquisition that were awarded to Holomua Elementary School that I had, that was awarded to DOE, the 5 acres. And up to now, they are waiting for the tax credits that were supposed to be issued from DOE so that they can start building the parking for the Holomua and Elementary School. So that's what I've been following up with you guys. When can we expect that for that to be issued to the Eva Gentry so the land can be awarded to DOE, and of course they will also shoulder the building of the parking. So isn't that what we need to do, Superintendent?
Thank you, Representative Martinez. That is if we're talking about, it's the land adjacent, right, to the Holomua campus. I'm familiar with the land and where that is, but we'll follow up with you definitely on where we are in that process.
Yes,
Thank you.
please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Chair. Just a quick question. It's similar to what Rep. Martin had mentioned. In my district, there's lots of proposed new schools, Ho'opili, East Kapolei, things which are forthcoming. If this bill were to pass, would this affect in any way the timeline of the planning and designing of these new schools?
Thank you very much for that question, Representative Garcia. I believe so. I believe that within this process, we would be able to move forward a lot quicker on that. Definitely a need for that area is to be able to build those schools. So, yes, the answer to your question is yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Okay. Question for their superintendent or board chair. But this relates to, if you can expand on, what do you mean by real estate, I guess, Office of Real Estate Development? Like what would be the functions, and how do you see this as, you're developing this, looking at this measure? What would this office look like? What would be the functions of the Office of Facilities and Real Estate Development?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. One thing I just want to clarify is when we say optimization, it doesn't always equate to development. We have so many existing campuses. We have so many work orders. We have like close to 40,000 work orders in repairs and maintenance and deferred maintenance. And on the capital side, we have hundreds of them. So one of the first tasks of getting this SFA and the DOE put together, as Superintendent mentioned, is to take a holistic approach to what we can do to make things better, look at all the processes, see where we're taking so much time. It would definitely help Ho'opilis with 4 parcels that DR Horton is required to transfer to the DOE. Right now, there's this lack of clarity between what DOE has and SFA has in terms of roles and responsibilities. So by having it all in one agency, so to speak, it makes it a lot easier. Real estate development, as we talk about it, could mean many things. One of the major issues facing the state of Hawaii is the lack of housing. And as Rep. Martin has mentioned to me even before I started, Keolu has very, very low attendance and is in a perfect neighborhood near Enchanted Lakes to have this kind of housing. So we're trying to get an inventory of all of the assets, and we're also planning to very quickly launch a new statewide Department of Education housing survey to see what the housing requirements are for all education employees. As Superintendent mentioned, recruitment and retention is heavily impacted by the lack of teachers being able to find homes close to where they work at an affordable rate. So when we have that kind of data, then we can overlay it with enrollment trends or available lands and see what can be done to optimize it. So that then gets into the development aspect. It's not necessarily developing a 30-story high-rise that we're talking about. We're just trying to look at our assets and see what can be used in that particular neighborhood or community to meet their needs. Does that?
And as I understand the optimization study that's ongoing through the department right now, has this been identified as, one of those priorities that's in the Oreo study of having the 2 offices separated and creating a new function to meet this need for housing?
Well, one of the phases that we talked about is doing an overall look at process reengineering to map out what we currently do and then to reorganize. This bill will enable us to reorganize because it does specify a timeline for the reorganization. It creates that separate assistant superintendent of OFRED. So we did not have it as a specific, department per se because we're still in the throes of getting that reorganization put together. But this enables us, and it actually gives us a deadline upon which that we have to come up with this reorganization, which is all fine because it all kind of works together.
Yeah, I guess it was my understanding when we were briefed earlier in session that we would wait for the optimization kind of study and then look at what the recommendations would be for legislative action. So my last question has to do with the 2 projects that are under the SFA. One is the Mililani teacher housing and how this would affect that. But also, because DOE is tasked with K-12, how does this impact, and whether or not statutorily you can do this, is the public pre-K, the $200 million that was allocated to have to be able to expand those classrooms. So how would that those 2 projects, key projects for early learning and then teacher housing and Mililani impact?
Let me answer the pre-K one first. On the pre-K one, during the last school year, the Department of Education actually did the work to open the initial cohort of 11 classrooms. And when the fires occurred in Maui, at that point, SFA was trying to do that. However, they lacked the staff and the systems to do that. The next cohort of 22, I think it is, or 44. So we recently entered into a new memorandum of agreement that was in February that the Department of Education now is still taking that on, the pre-K. So for all intents and purposes, the DOE has done the first 11 and is doing the second 44, so nothing changes, nothing slows down for that particular project. For the Mililani teacher housing, SFA was funded something in the order of $50 million, and I could be slightly off, of which $45 million was reallocated, I think, to Maui, leaving only a $5 million balance for teacher housing. I know that SFA has had discussions with potential responders to the RFP, and the department and the board need to kind of get caught up in terms of where that is. But all I'm saying is that it seems like it just lacks the necessary amount of funding, having only $5 million left in that pot. Yeah.
But you feel that the staffing and resources that was lacking in SFA is something that the DOE is currently going to be able to provide through this bill?
I think when we get done with the reorganization, then there may be additional positions required that we would have to come back. We're also looking at and collaborating with University of Hawaii because they have different positions that essentially do the same thing, and they are at higher wage schedules. So oftentimes it's hard for the Department of Education to recruit, whereas they might go to UH. So we're trying to collaborate and look and see if we can conform our job descriptions to that same one that UH is using. In that whole process, we're going to come up with that reorganization. This bill, SFA has an executive director in 7 positions, so it eliminates those 7 positions, but it doesn't specify that the DOE adds those 8 positions. But that's an outcome of the planned reorganization. Yeah, so we'll be back.
Mahalo. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Quick question for DOE.
Chair, may I just make one clarifying statement? I believe Chair had shared that the initial 11 classrooms for Ready Kiki was DOE initiated. However, I do believe that the next 44 was SFA initiated. So I just wanted to clarify that.
What do you mean by that specifically?
That I believe it's my understanding that the SFA leveraged to do the next 44. That's my understanding right now, but I will follow up to make sure that I'm accurate on that statement.
Okay, thank you. Please let us know.
Thank you.
And so it's notable that SFA is not here to mount a defense. They don't see them here in the audience. But in your conversations with SFA, did they explain as to why they are moving at the same rate or even at a lesser pace than the DOE facilities as it relates to starting and finishing projects?
Chair, respectfully, I would defer that to SFA to respond. I don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the SFA.
But have you had any conversations with them to understand what their challenges are? And I'm asking because statutorily, when we set up SFA, we gave them many exemptions that would allow them to move at a quicker rate. And so they have a lot of tools available to them that the Office of Facilities and Operations do not have. And so theoretically, they would be able to move quicker. And so have you had any conversations with them to see as to why they weren't moving at a lesser pace than DOE?
No conversation come to mind.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe Chairman Haruki, if you can answer those questions, if you know.
You want me to answer the question about the pace?
I guess specifically, if you've had any conversations with SFA to ascertain, what challenges they are having specifically, because we were very purposeful when we established that agency of allowing them to have exemptions for the purpose of them moving at a quicker pace, but yet they're not. And so that's objectively concerning.
I would say over the course of the past 5-6 months, I've had multiple conversations with the SFA chair, and throughout those conversations, different issues have come up, primarily around the fact that they couldn't get staffed up. And I think that's a major issue that they had. They also didn't have the kinds of systems that the DOE has, like JOC, to get these things going. So they may have the DOE may have initiated these 11, and they may have initiated the next 44, but the actual work is still being done by the DOE.
I see. So that's a further clarification on the superintendent's
Yes,
clarification.
and you're asking if they use these additional powers, so to speak, or additional language to accelerate, and essentially from the pre-K standpoint, you can't really see that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they explain as to why they're having challenges aggregating staff? Because again, within the flexibility that the legislature provided them, theoretically, it would be easier for them to attract staff.
I think there were many issues with respect to the staff. They didn't have the job descriptions worked through. These are, like I said, Chair Woodson, conversations that have transpired over many months to understand what was affecting their progress, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing that, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. We have SB 2475 SD2. This is with regards to the harm to student registry. First up, we have is DOE offering testimony and support in person.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chair. Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members of the committee, Keith Hayashi, Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure, but preferring the language that was passed in HB 2043 HD1. Safeguarding the health and safety and well-being of our students is one of our highest priorities. The bill would create a harm to students registry to prevent individuals who harm children by being employed or volunteering in our schools. It would also allow for effective cross-sharing of information between public and private educational institutions regarding any ongoing or concluded investigations upon request. This will help strengthen the systems in place so that we can further protect our students from these offenders. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here, too. Next, we have EOEL offering testimony and support in person.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica. I'm Yuko, and members of the committee. I'm Yuko Arikawa Cross, Director of the Executive Office on Early Learning. We stand on our written testimony and support. Protecting children against harm is paramount for the Executive Office on Early Learning, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Director. Next, we have AG's office offering comments in person.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members, Ann Hariuchi, Department of the Attorney General. The department worked with the DOE on addressing concerns that our department raised in previous testimony, both on Senate Bill 2475, but also on House Bill 2043, which also creates a harm to students registry. We are requesting in our testimony that the content of HB 2043 HD3, not HD1, but HD3, be inserted in this bill. We think that that draft reflects the work that are between the department and the DOE. And our testimony suggests some additional clarifying amendments. I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. So your testimony always says you're going to be available via Zoom, but you're always in person. Why is that? Okay. Moving on, next we have DHS offering comments. Not present. Okay, we have the Teacher Standards Board offering testimony and support in person.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. My name is Felicia Villalobos, and I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. Testifying on behalf of the board, HTSB is in support of SB 2475 SD2. We submitted written testimony with a comment and would like the word institutions further defined by adding the words public or private before the word institution. This would help clarify the definition of an institution. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Public Charter School Commission offering testimony in support. Dr. No, in person.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Whitson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. We, through the Charter Commission, stand in full support of this measure and stand on our written testimony.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Office of Informational Practices offering comments via Zoom. Not present. We have the Early Learning Board offering testimony and support. Not present. We have the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools in person. Phil Vossert.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson and Vice Chair LaChica. My name is Phil Bossert. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools, and we stand in very strong support of this measure, and I second everything my colleague Keith just said.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your work on this bill. We have Kamehameha Schools offering testimony and support. Kamehameha Schools, not present. We have Mr. Latham. He is the principal of Punahou School, also in support. I know he was involved as well. And we have one individual, Mr. Blankley, offering testimony in support. That's all I have. Anyone else? Oh, please go ahead. Superintendent Hayashi.
Sorry, Chair. Keith Hayashi, Superintendent DOE. I'd like to correct for the record, please, that we are, like the AG, we are preferring the language that was passed in HB 2043 HD3. I had incorrectly stated HD1 earlier.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
thought you said HC3 also.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did he? No? Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next bill. I'm sorry, remember any questions, I should say? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next bill, SB 3305. This is with regards to charter schools pre-K program. This is really a housekeeping measure. First up we have is EOEL offering testimony and support in person. Thank you so much. Charter School Commission, Dr. Doe, and support in person.
Yes, in full support, as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Coalition. And support in person. Thank you so much. We have Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks in support and in person. Thank you for being here. And we have Parents and Children Together also in support. Anyone else? Again, members, we heard this bill before. Questions, members? Seeing none, moving on to the next bill, SB 2072 SD1. This is DOE COVID reporting. Again, a repeat. First, we have Superintendent DOE in person and support. Thank you. AG's office offering comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members. As we noted in our testimony, there's a typographical error in the statutory reference to FERPA, and so our testimony suggests a revision that will address that error.
Thank you. We received your testimony on that. Last, we have Department of Health in person and in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the Committee on Education. My name is Nathan Tan. I'm the Deputy Chief of Disease Outbreak Control Division here for the department, and the department stands by its written testimony in support of this measure and here to answer any questions as needed. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anyone else? SB 2072 SD1, COVID reporting. Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill, we have SB 2257 SD3. This is with regards to CTE teachers and licensure. First up, we have is Department of Education offering testimony and support in person.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. Sean Bacon, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Talent Management. We stand on our written testimony and support and are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Teacher Standards Board in support in person. Executive Director.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. My name is Felicia Villalobos, Executive Director of the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board, testifying on behalf of the board. HTSB is in support of SB 2257 SD3. We submitted written testimony and like to highlight that this bill would help support a career and technical education, or CTE, pathway into teaching by giving individuals from the trades with years, if not decades, of experience in their trade to go into teaching. So again, this is specifically for the CTE pathway only. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Pacific Resource Partnership offering testimony and support, not present. We have the Carpenters Union in support, not present. And lastly, we have P20, Mr. Schatz, Stephen Schatz, in support, not present. Anyone else? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Quick question for DOE. So this proposal, this is the first time we're seeing this in the House chamber. This proposal simply relaxes licensure for a very specific niche. It's specific for CTE teachers. Is this common practice elsewhere, or is this something that's new?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I think I would defer to the Standards Board on that question. If it's common practice, really they need to have a license or a permit in order to be eligible to teach within the Department of Education. Currently, right now, the statute allows for anyone with an associate's degree or higher. This would allow the Standards Board to consider somebody with less than an associate's degree, but with additional industry experience as an equivalency to possibly qualify for that license or permit.
Okay, maybe we can ask Villalobos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Felicia Villalobos, Executive Director of the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. We didn't do a nationwide study. We can look at other CTE folks and what they're doing in their states for licensure. We formed a committee, a CTE committee, the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board approved. It was all the educational stakeholders in the state that have a stake in CTE, and they felt that the AA, by that only definition with not any other requirements, they wanted to do something more equitable. And so what's equivalent to an AA? And they even suggested, if this passes, forming a committee of CTE education stakeholders to look at what would be equivalent to. Is it 30 years of experience in mechanical engineering and certificates? Is it being a licensed operator of something and then they have additional certificates? So they just didn't want to keep it to an AA. They want to add that word or equivalent to. So just that additional to it. But I can look at different states and what they're doing for licensure in regarding CTE, and probably Tennessee would be a good state to look at because they are pretty much #1 in CTE right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Indiana is doing some good work in that space too, but thank you so much. Member, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill. We have SB 3087 SD1. This is with regards to pre-K classrooms, just allowing the classrooms to be established in other areas, public land areas. First up we have is the Department of Education offering testimony and support in person. Kurt Otagura.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Kurt Otaguro, Deputy Superintendent. Department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. I want to add that was mentioned before, the department continues to help to help lead with SFA expansion of the classrooms, and will continue to do that. But we believe that expanding the reach to other public lands and other locations will help working families where they work. And so we believe that this will be a good measure. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next we have EOEL in person in support. Director Awakawa Cross.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members of the committee. First of all, thank you very much for hearing this bill. I appreciate it. The Executive Office on Early Learning strongly supports this bill, and the intention of this bill is to expand the current pre-plus model to also apply to existing underutilized spaces on other public properties, in addition to what currently exists on the Department of Education's campuses. This measure has no fiscal request, nor requires any operational funding, as it would simply provide EOEL the authority to contract early learning services on existing underutilized spaces. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have DHS offering testimony and support. Not present. We have OHA in person in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Keopu Relitz. I'm the Director of Advocacy with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We stand on our written testimony and support. Just a quick highlight that as we were creating Mana'i Mauliola, our strategic plan, which we're 4 years into, one of the resounding needs of our Hawaiian community was the ability to provide high-quality keiki and kupuna care. And so we believe this is an opportunity to expand existing successful models to reach those ends. Mahalo, and here to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks, offering testimony and support in person. Thank you for being here. Next, we have AA Coalition in support. Thank you. Next, we have Kamehameha Schools, offering testimony and support. Not present, we have Early Childhood Action Network Strategies, offering testimony and support. We have the Early Learning Board, sorry, should have said that earlier, in support. Special Education Advisory Council in support. And one individual offering testimony and support. That's all I have. Anyone else? Members, any questions? We heard the House version of this bill. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill. Again, we've heard these next two. Next up is SB 3091. SD2, this is the EA for food services. First, we have DOE offering testimony and support in person.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Kurt Otoguro, Deputy Superintendent. Department stands on its written testimony in support of this. I know this comes at a challenging time, shortfall of estimated at 20 million. The primary reasons for this is really just cost escalation itself. Food costs used to be around 35% of the department's expense or the office's expense for food services. That same cost now has exceeded 50%, not to mention labor costs and other factors. We operate on about 135 million in revenues. We collect revenues either from reimbursements of the USDA. We do have your appropriations from the legislature, and then we also charge. We haven't increased school lunch fees in a while. We're looking at offsetting some of that, even though this is, again, a challenging time to do such a thing. But we need to mitigate some of the losses. Our expenses are in excess of 154 million now. And so the reimbursements from USDA are not sufficient to cover the cost that it's costing us to feed our students. Happy to answer any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Hawaii Food Industry Association offering testimony and support via Zoom. Not present. We have Hawaii Primary Care Association offering testimony and support. Not present. Hawaii Food Policy offering testimony and support. That's all I have. Anyone else? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Go ahead, Rep.
Quick question for Deputy Superintendent Otoguro. So I guess my question is thinking about the farm to school efforts and thinking about, as we invest in that transition, then hopefully more students will be actually consuming the meals before them. I'm wondering, because we're also getting reports from students and schools about the quality of food and high levels of waste, so a lot of it being thrown out because it's highly processed, not palatable, et cetera. So I think those kinds of concerns expressed by the community in combination with this ask kind of raise red flags. And I'm wondering, number one, are you doing any waste audits at schools? I know that as part of Ainapono, there were ongoing waste audits. And then number two, are you in conversation, or is the department in conversation with the federal government around the Farm Bill and the federal Department of Education around the requirements for milk. Because in Hawaii, we have a demographically diverse population, and most of the waste that we saw on multiple campuses had to do with students throwing out milk because they're lactose intolerant. So, sorry, that's a complicated two-part question, but you can ask me if you need clarification.
Sure, thanks. There's no question that people, when you serve 18.5 million meals a year, somebody may not like it. That's just the nature of what I can assure you that every cafeteria around school is doing their best to feed them the best possible meal that they can. It's not clearly the department's intention or a school's intention to serve lousy food. With regard to the food waste, the department did do a study. It's probably long overdue to update that. So we did do a food study of waste probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And so we're happy to look at that. But that's always a concern, no question about that. With regard to milk, I would have to defer and get back to you on lactose intolerance and what are the substitutions that we would provide to a student, whether it's soy or something other than that.
Thank you.
I'll get
Thank you,
back.
Chair.
Thank you. Good question. Members, any other questions? All right, seeing none, moving on to the next bill. We have SB 3092, SD2. This is also a EA, but for charter schools. First up we have is Department of Education and support in person.
Chair, Vice Chair, Brian Hallett, CFO for Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have HSTA offering testimony and support via Zoom. Not present. No Charter School Commission. Interesting for this bill. Oh, please. Oh,
You mean as a written testimony was not?
yes.
Excuse me.
We didn't receive it anyway.
Chair, Vice Chair, yeah, Ed No, Executive Director, Charter School Commission. I know it was something that we had discussed, but we do stand in support for this.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, that's all I have. Members, any questions or anyone else wishing to provide testimony on SB 3092, SD2, EA Charter Schools? Member questions? Okay, on to the last bill. We have SB 3207, SD2. This is regard to superintendent's compensation. First up, we have the Board of Education offering testimony and support in person.
Good afternoon again. Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Lachika, members of the committee, and Warren Haruki, Chair of the Board. We stand by our written testimony to support this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I just want to clarify one issue that seems to be prevalent here as well as when the bill was heard in the Senate. This bill does not automatically confer a raise on the current superintendent. It's just the process that is outlined here. So people were reading it as if we were automatically giving a raise, but that is not the case. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the right point.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have we have Pursuit of Happiness, Kauai, and opposition. We have Aloha Freedom Coalition and Hawaii Children's Health Defense, available via Zoom, and opposition. Not present. We have Julie Reyes Oda in opposition via Zoom. Ms. Oda, go ahead if you're there.
Hi. Good afternoon, members of the Senate Education Committee. My name is Julie Reyes Oda, a teacher at Nanakuli High and Intermediate, and I strongly oppose SB 3207. On February 2nd, I testified at the Senate Education Committee against increasing the cap for the superintendent by 40%, from $250,000 to $350,000. The Senate Education Committee amended the proposed amount by reducing the cap to $300,000. Next, the bill was heard by the Senate Ways and Means Committee, where stated in the committee report, they believe that the Board of Education is in the best position to determine the salary of the superintendent of education based upon an annual performance evaluation. When Superintendent Hayashi initially got his job, The Board of Education agreed to pay him 96% of the cap as part of a 3-year contract, $240,000, the same amount outgoing Superintendent Christina Kishimoto was getting. I gave testimony on December 7, 2023, at the Board of Education Human Resources Committee meeting concerning an amendment to Superintendent Keith Hayashi's employment contract to max him out to the cap, $250,000, when the board didn't even have to. The board attached his signed employment contract dated July 14, 2022, signed by the superintendent, his personal attorney, Anna Elento-Sneed, board chair Bruce Voss, and Deputy Attorney General James Halverson. 3 of the 4 signatories are attorneys, so they all should have known what they were signing. That the state of Hawaii agreed to pay Superintendent Hayashi $240,000 per year for 3 years, no reopener. Even though the contract stated the duration ended June 30th, 2025, and the salary was $240,000, the board said that the contract had since not yet been revised. If this is the way that the state of Hawaii does business, then contracts with the state don't matter. We will revise any contract for any reason, and I wonder if that's the same precedent that will work with all public unions too, because what's good for him should be good for all the people that work for him. I want you all to remember that because DOE leadership salaries increase when the superintendent's pay increases. So this is actually more than just one person. Do you guys remember what the public thought when the city council pay raises, with the city council pay raises of 64%? And that was just for city council members to make over $100,000. For perspective, the governor makes a little under $185,000. Well, based on the salary for governor, I know that the superintendent won't be looking at that for his next career move. Amy Peruso sat with me in the Board of Education audience before, and I'm wondering, Rep. Peruso, what would the public think of giving the Board of Education a blank check for the superintendent's salary? At the same time, we have no check on the Board of Education. Board of Education members are nominated by the governor. How can the public participate in this process? Only by submitting written testimony or speaking to it, and even that's limited. I mean, there's no guarantee, and the amount of time could be lowered to 60 seconds, essentially. We need to keep the conversation on the lack of funding for schools and being responsible for the use of taxpayer money. Vote no on this bill or amend it to $250,000. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I just want to remind testifiers that the purpose is not to ask the members questions. The purpose is for the members to ask the community questions so we can get to a better place with regards to policy. Any other individuals wishing to provide testimony on SB 3207, SD2? And for the record, we have about 30 plus individuals all offering individual testimony in opposition. Okay. Seeing none, members, any questions? Vice Chair.
To Chair Haruki, are you able to just respond to some of the concern on the deletion of the cap? And if on the existing process, as the Board of Education determines what the new salary would be, would there be an opportunity for the public to weigh in, on provide public comment?
Yes. I mean, the answer is yes. Let me just clarify one thing, that positions such as assistant superintendents, deputy superintendents, complex area superintendents, and the superintendent, their compensation all goes before the board in various committees, human resources primarily, so the public has opportunity to comment at that point. The process that will be used is the same process that is in place, and this statute retains it, to have an evaluation done of the superintendent, and we set goals for the upcoming school year at the beginning of the school year, and toward the end of the school year, we then do the evaluation. So that serves as the basis. So I think that answers your question.
Hello, Chair.
Members, any other questions? Okay, please go ahead.
The testifier mentioned that when you raise a superintendent's salary, it impacts the salaries of some of his leadership staff. Do you know how many people's salaries would be changed as a result of a change there?
That is not correct. The testifier's comment is not correct. As I just explained, when we just recently did it a few months back, salaries for complex area superintendents, assistant superintendents, deputy superintendents came to the board. So it's not an automatic fait accompli if we raise the superintendent. In fact, all of them got raises and the superintendent did not get a raise. So, yeah. In this bill, if the sunset provision is not taken out, the opposite is going to happen, where it's very likely that all of those positions that I named, complex area superintendents, assistants, deputies, would be impacted with a pay cut because there is a statute that says nobody can make more than the superintendent. So if the sunset does not come out, then there will be a reversion of the 250 to 150, and nobody can make more than 150,000. So it has quite the opposite effect.
Thank you. Member, any other questions?
Sure.
Okay, please go ahead. Rep. Russo.
For the board chair. So again, thank you for being here. I'm remembering just a few years ago when the board created 2 additional administrative positions, 2 deputy superintendent positions that also raised similar levels of public resentment, and also made it more difficult to introduce and move measures that would have raised funds for public education. Because the public skepticism that was expressed was that all of the money would go towards those inflated salaries. So I just wonder, if you have talked at the board level, and I haven't been able to attend board meetings recently, but if you have had conversations about, the impact of those 2 additional positions, the fiscal impact, and then also the way in which the rationale for those positions was framed was to support the superintendent, to do part of his work. So we created those very highly paid positions to do part of his work, and then now we're removing the cap on his pay, and I'm wondering if you could speak to kind of the cognitive dissonance it creates for the public when we're talking about, maybe increasing some taxes. So through that constitutional amendment that would have imposed a property tax surcharge. There was resistance to that precisely on the basis of the work that the board is doing around these salaries. So can you speak to that?
I don't have the institutional knowledge or memory because of my term just starting last year.
Right.
So I don't know what
That's fair.
the narrative was around creating those 2 positions. I do know that in all aspects of the department's budget, especially given the fiscal crisis or the situation that we're in, everything is on the table. We're trying to look through many, many different aspects of the DOE to see where we can find pockets of expense savings or to be more efficient in our operations. In order to prevent what, as you say, creating additional taxes or additional burdens on the taxpayers. So that work is just beginning to get underway.
I feel like you're looking for efficiencies in the wrong places if you're creating executive positions.
No, we're not trying to do that at all. And let me clarify. We're trying to do the efficiencies in areas such as repairs and maintenance, for example, the state office, state office complex. It's a tri-level, right? State office complex area, and then the schools. So more on the first 2, and not affecting at the schools, what goes on in the classrooms. So to the extent that we can find efficiencies around administration.
Chair, just as a follow-up, so I was in the department when we gutted the state-level offices as, in an effort to create more efficiencies, and also kind of stripped the complex areas of capacity. So I know what that looks like and feels like at the school level, at the classroom level. You lose support for the work you need to do in the classroom.
Right.
So I really, as a board chair, I really think it's important that you understand that, you might be operating at a high level and looking at spreadsheets, but when you're creating these kinds of efficiencies and simultaneously funding these very expensive positions, it's hard for the public to process. And it's hard for, I mean, teachers to process. So I'm sorry, Chair, this was not a fair question because you have just come into this position. But I did want to highlight that discrepancy for you, or
That's
that
fine,
problem.
and I appreciate the comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Rep. Mariyoshi.
I want to echo Rep. Farruso's frustration with that. When I was a classroom teacher as well, we had a lot of complaints from the line teachers in the classroom like me that the DOE was just too top-heavy. I mean, we saw ourselves in the classroom getting kind of screwed. You know, I mean, our pay was bad, our conditions were bad, everything was pretty bad, and a lot of teachers were leaving. And at the same time, we saw a lot of people at the top of the DOE in positions that we did not, I mean, I can just speak for myself here, but I did not think were necessarily impacting the students in a meaningful way, especially in a way that, well, if they could just come back to the classroom, maybe my 35-person class could be 25 and a manageable size. So I think there was some frustration, and I assume it's still there, that the DOE is too top-heavy. I actually didn't even know about the two deputy superintendents. That's sort of besides the point, though. I mean, for this bill, I'm not sure it's, I want to choose my words carefully here. I'm not sure it's fair to say that the salaries are not linked. Because as you said, if the superintendent gets this $100,000 or whatever, if it goes back down to 150, everyone else's salaries would go down. I mean, I think that shows that they are linked. Now, they wouldn't necessarily go up at the same rate that the superintendents would, but they certainly would go up, and they cannot go up without his salary going up. So
That's a correct way of looking at it. If it goes down, it automatically is linked. If it goes up, there's still board committee and board action required to increase it.
But certainly that would be considered, right? I mean, certainly it would be considered.
Because of the ceiling
raise
being
theirs.
higher, yes, you're right.
Right. Is the current superintendent planning on leaving? Has he given you any indication that he's unhappy with his salary and that he's considering vacating his position?
We've never had any conversations along those lines.
Okay. And if that's not the case, then why are we giving an unlimited cap to someone who's already making more than the governor?
This is my understanding of what has transpired with this particular statute. 10 years ago, the cap was at 150, and it was then raised by 100,000 to 250. So the original draft of the Senate bill had the same $100,000 increment being added to the 250 to get to 350, which was subsequently amended down to 300, and then in Ways and Means, it was eliminated to just have the words that, like the University of Hawaii, the Board of Education will set the salary of the superintendent. So,
So you'd be fine with 250? You'd be fine with keeping it at 250, is what you're saying?
we were testifying that it should be higher if the same interval of a decade was going to be used, because as we know, we have seen rampant inflation and compensation increases over the past 3-4 years. And if the statute was going to be revisited every 10 years, then we did feel that an increase of the cap from 250 to something else was warranted. But now that the cap is taken out and it simply says that the Department of Education will set the salary, we still will revert to a process whereby an evaluation will serve as a basis, and it will come before the committee, Human Resources typically, and the board for approval.
What's the superintendent's salary at right now? Is it at 250?
240.
Okay. I think one of the reasons why we put the cap on was so that it wouldn't get too out of control. I mean, the governor is making, what, 180? He has a arguably more important job than the superintendent, and if we take off this cap, my concern is that the Board of Education, or even if we set it at 350, my concern is that that'll be the target at some point in the near future. I'm not sure that people's salaries necessarily should grow linearly like that a 10-year gap should then be reflected in the next 10 years, especially if it's a $100,000 gap. And again, I think it does create a lot of animosity among line teachers that are getting not paid not $350. That the superintendent is. I think this bill might have its opposite effect on the morale of the department. So I encourage you, and I'll speak to Chair about this after, but to keep it at $250 for now, as I think that's a adequate salary for what the superintendent does.
Yeah.
I guess, sorry, can I ask one follow-up question?
Please go ahead.
If we were to eliminate the cap, what would you folks suggest the salary be right now?
We don't have any recommended salary at this moment. The plan was to use an independent compensation consulting firm that could look at the salary of the superintendent, the deputies, assistants, and the complex area superintendents, and then propose a recommendation to the board. That doesn't mean that the board has to accept it. But we wanted to have an independent, sort of like a third-party consultant be the ones to advise. Versus, right, the current process is pretty much done internally.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Member, any other questions? I have a quick question. Thank you, Chairman, for being here. And so just to clarify, a question for you, sir. Any adjustment to the superintendent's compensation, there's a public comment process that's incorporated into that decision.
Right. There's the public can comment on the evaluation of the superintendent first. And secondly, if a salary recommendation is being proposed as a part or separately, then that also has a public comment period. Yes.
Thank you for that. I just want to confirm, it's uncouth to talk about it, but we're having the discussion. The superintendent's current salary is $240,000 annually. And do you know how his salary compares to other superintendents of similar school size in terms of a public school system? Is it below or above or at parity?
I do have 6 comparable school district size, which similar size student enrollment, and the Hawaii superintendent is paid the lowest at $240. It ranges from $280 to, is it actually one at $597? But this is like I said, 6 schools with comparable student enrollments or enrollments that are very similar to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the lowest.
So he's the lowest, and the next is 280, you said?
The next is 280, and then after that it's 310, then 330, 380, then 598.
598?
Yes.
What jurisdiction has 598?
It's Gwinnett County. I'm not sure which state Gwinnett County is in.
Gwinnett County. Coach, where is that? Okay.
Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions?
Sorry, I actually have one.
Okay, go ahead.
This is like my first question I've asked all year. My wife's a teacher, so what are you going to do? So I was wondering during the last round where we selected the current superintendent, do we have a figure on how many people actually expressed interest?
I wasn't here.
Does anyone here kind of know? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, recess. Good afternoon. Reconvening the Joint Committees on Education and the Labor, Government, and Operations. Members, for this one, we are going to, which is voting on considering SB 2070 SD1. This is with regards to the Department of Education and CTE procurement. Members, we will defer decision-making on this proposal until Thursday, the 14th, and we will do that at 11 o'clock a.m. in conference room 309. That's here, Thursday at 11. Okay, reconvening the Committee on Education for several bills. First up, we have is SB 3328. This dissolves the SFA and reconstructs the Department of Education's Office of Facilities and Operations. Members, this bill is a quadruple referral. It does need some work, I admit that, but I would like to move it, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead.
So I appreciate the part of the measure that dissolves SFA, but I don't support creating additional capacity within the Department of Education for real estate development. So I'll be a no.
Thank you for that. And just to clarify, the real estate development is not for the purpose of just real estate development, it's for the purpose of education.
Right, I understand. I heard the superintendent.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead.
I do have concerns that I just don't want us to be selling state land. I'm okay with long-term leases, 50 plus maybe, but I don't really want to be selling state land, so I'll be going with reservations, Chair.
Thank you. Any others? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Okay, members, voting on Senate Bill 3328 SD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the, Representative Capella.
Reservations.
Reservations. Representative Martin. Representative Martinez.
Aye.
Representative Matayoshi. Reservations.
Reservations.
Reservations. Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Noting no vote for Representative Peruso. Representative Quinlan.
Aye.
Representative Todd.
Aye.
And Representative Garcia is excused. Chair, your recommendation's adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 2475 SD2. This is the Harm to School Student Registry. Members, I would like to revert back to the House version of HB 2043 HD1. That's based upon the bill that we passed, HD2. In addition to the recommendations that we already voted on, the first time around in the HD2, it further clarifies information contained in the registry and also amends that the requirements of the registry functions are constant with current due process and appeals. It deletes the provision that makes the registry accessible to the Department of Human Services as it is not needed. In addition, it deletes the language in our HD1 that we passed that articulates a varied appeals process and adds that all relevant agencies that use the registry need to check the registry for both potential employment and volunteers. Other technical amendments, and then based upon the HD2, the HD3 simply unspecifies about FTEs. Besides that, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. And again, this is to propose amendments to make this proposal have a better opportunity to make it through, or at least to conference. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
Just to clarify, you just said that it would not be available to DHS.
That is correct, per the testimony, per DHS's testimony. And it doesn't really need to be. There's other statutory provisions that would allow information sharing, some similar but not exactly the same, if need be. That's per their request. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 2475 SD2, noting the absence of Representative Garcia for the remainder of the agenda. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members wishing to vote with reservation? Any members wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3305, Charter Schools. This is the housekeeping bill with regards to pre-K. Again, it's the same as HB 2578, and so we'll simply defect the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 3305, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members wishing to vote with reservations? Anyone wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Voting on SB 2072, SD1, DOE, DOH, and COVID reporting. Members, we will accept AG's recommendation, which is really just a technical one regarding the typo in sections 123-2G. That's found on page 2, line 4, and then we will defect the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 2072, SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members wishing to vote with reservation? Anyone wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Voting on SB 2257, SD3. This is CTE teacher qualifications. Member, the recommendation is to pass this, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 2257, SD3, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members wishing to vote with reservation? Anyone wishing to vote no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Voting on SB 3087, SD1. This is pre-K establishment of pre-K classrooms on other public lands. Again, the same as HB 1903. I'd like to defect the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair.
Voting on Senate Bill 3087, SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Anyone wishing to vote with reservation? Any members wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3091, SD2. This is our EA for food service. Members, I would like to revert back to HB 2402. Exact same language, just the sections are organized a little bit differently. And besides that, defect the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 3091, SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members wishing to vote with reservation? Anyone wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 3092, SD2. This is our EA for charter schools, similar or exactly the same to, not exactly the same, but very similar to HB 2403. We'd like to take the House version and defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair, please.
Voting on Senate Bill 3092, SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members wishing to vote with reservation? Anyone wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Members, moving on to the last bill, SB 3207, SD2, Superintendent and Compensation. Members, I would like to move this with the HD1, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody? Mariyoshi.
Reservation too?
Sure, I'll go first. I think I expressed my concerns pretty well during the question portion of it. I just feel uncomfortable, honestly, with us raising the salary of someone who is fine with the salary right now, who is not yet at the cap. I think that we should have a cap on the superintendent's salary because it does have a trickle-down effect on the deputy superintendents and others down the line. Honestly, I've gotten just a bad reaction for this bill. Having been a teacher in the classroom too, I feel like the resources are better spent elsewhere, and it seems like kind of like a solution looking for a problem right now. I think that we should keep the cap at 250, get rid of the sunset to not have that unintended consequence. But that's the way I would rather have this go. And I appreciate the chair for allowing us to vote our conscience on this bill. But if the bill is going to stay without a salary cap, then I think I'm a no vote on this one.
Thank you. Rep. Martinez.
No, with reservation.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sure.
Rep. Russo.
First, I wanted to echo Rep. Matayoshi's gratitude for the chair's work on this measure. And I have already said a great deal on my thoughts on it. I wanted to add that I do feel deeply uncomfortable with removing an additional layer of oversight that we could provide for the Board of Education. I don't want to leave it to the Board of Education to make this determination. And I think that if we are going to address inequities or inadequacies in salary, that we should start from the bottom and not from the top. So on this measure, I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to, I think, echo the last two individual members of the committee. I just think that we really need to focus on a bottom up. But I do understand that everyone, from our teachers to our principals and across the board, all of our educators and administrators in the DOE system need to be paid more. So with that, I'm going to go reservations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for that, members. And I do concur, we need to pay our teachers more. We need to pay our principals more. We need to pay more across the board. And hopefully that's something that we can work together on. Okay, with that, Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Members voting on Senate Bill 3207, SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the reservation votes for Representative Capella and Representative Martinez. Anyone else wishing to vote with reservation? Noting the no votes for Representatives Matayoshi and Representatives Peruso. Any other members wishing to vote no? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Adjourn.